Welcome to Natural Born Talents. Today's subject is The Secret of the Angels, Part 3, The Good Angels. To some, this may be the most controversial video of the three that I made about the secrets of the angels. On top of that, this is going to give the final secret to the series The Devil's Contract. So this is kind of a spoiler alert. If you don't want to know the ending of that series, I suggest you watch this later. But having said that, I do not speak for the angels. I'm only here to tell you my experiences with them and the conclusions I made from those experiences. This is also true with my ancestors, and you can see more detail on that in the video The Last Druid, listed in the description below. The angels have always pointed out to me that the experience of their game and the conclusions you make will differ from person to person. It was intentionally designed this way. There are of course some laws and truths that no one can change, but the angels wanted you to come out on the other side of their game with your own conclusions. When the angels got their turn over humanity, they designed the matrix to suit their needs, and the game of moralism versus decadence, good versus evil, left versus right, the duality. But once clearing this reality came love, the truth, peace, joy, the various kinds of heavens throughout the universe, and so on. And waiting in those realms are the good angels, the angels who love humanity, who love to help humanity, to nurture it if they can, to guide, to teach. Those angels are very close to my ancestors and all of the other spiritual beings throughout the universe. They wait for those who wake up from the matrix. They know who Satan is, they know who the fallen angels are, they know how the game is played. They are non-judging, loving, patient, wonderful beings to play with. To emphasize this point, I can give you some examples from my own experience, as well as you can look at some movies that the angels like to use to convey their messages. And again, you're more than welcome to draw your own conclusions about what I saw and experienced. Now, to remind people how this game works, Satan works along with or plays off the moralistic angels and vice versa. And the moralistic angels I have mentioned in other videos are Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, and Michael. There are others. There's also Lucifer, who plays a different game, and many, many more. But to emphasize the point of this video, I'll limit it to these angels only. Having said that, when insanity starts to surface throughout the world, as it is now, it is sometimes called Judgment Day. And that's when the lines of moralism versus decadence start to get a little blurry. Now again, moralism does have its purpose. Not all moralists are corrupt. And the people who are exploring decadence, especially on the Lucifer game, are not necessarily corrupt. They're just here to experience it, and some to grow up from it. So let me give you some examples of this. The best example I can give you about Lucifer is really rather amusing. If any of you have ever watched the movie The Rocky Horror Picture Show, that movie is made about Lucifer himself. Not Satan, not the other angels, but Lucifer. It has everything in it that Lucifer teaches. In fact, that movie, as low budget as it was, is now a cult classic, and rightfully so. It really is spot on how Lucifer teaches the bland side of moralism, the sense of freedom you get from decadence, and the experience you get from his game in the end. Now, my dealings with the angels, I was told this movie was intentionally made about Lucifer, so it really is about him. It has his sycophants, it has the moralists, it has his narcissistic persona, it has his sexual freedom, but a decadent side, and all the drama that goes with such a game. So if you haven't seen this movie and you want to learn more about Lucifer, I highly recommend this movie. Personally, I don't particularly care for his game. I like his artistic view of the world and how he sees darkness, but I don't care for his narcissistic behavior. And he knows this. He and I understand each other very well. I don't care for darkness. That's not what we practice. But artistically, it is something to experience for sure. But again, you have to be very careful when you do this, because once you're in darkness, it is sometimes very hard to get out of it. You may fall to the next problem, which is the Satan level of darkness, which he and the moralist take very seriously. And that is a little bit more of a problem. Another movie I could suggest that sort of reflects Satan a little bit more than Lucifer would be The Phantom of the Paradise, another low-budget movie. And in this movie, you can see how the drama between good versus evil is played out at a very low-budget, quirky movie. But again, the angels always loved to use Hollywood to make their little lessons spelled out in their subtle little ways. Now, there are many other movies made about angels, the moralistic ones as well as fallen ones, as well as the feel-good ones. It's the feel-good ones, like It's a Wonderful Life and Angels in the Outfield. Those are really representing the angels that love to help it and nurture humanity. The angel movies made about the fallen ones are, in my experience, not anywhere close to what I saw. They give you some hints, but that's about it. In fact, to me, their interpretation is a little silly at best. However, they do give some hints that are true. And one of the hints are angels are not allowed to interfere with the matrix. And this is because they'll interfere with people's experiences, their path in their life, their understanding of the good versus evil game, their struggle of faith, their leap from faith, and so on and so forth. So they're not allowed to interfere. But angels do make mistakes. They sometimes purposely interfere. They get punished for it. Some of them are in human form. Some of them want to experience being human. Some do fall in love with humans. And many of these other hints, those hints, in my experience, have been quite accurate. It's how they're perceived in Hollywood movies I find a little bit silly, which I think is on purpose, because if they make it too real or too spot on, that would also ruin the flow of the Matrix. But the flow of the Matrix ends on Judgment Day, or the transition, or whatever you want to call it. And again, this is all spelt out in the Bible and other prophecies, but the Bible and those prophecies are often distorted by the moralistic angels, not to give too much away. And again, that is all on a purpose. It is often to remind people that the ultimate answer to this game is love. Now, to emphasize this in another way, I'll give you some examples. Let's start with Joseph. Joseph is a young man who goes out in the world and sees something very horrific, satanic, ugly, vulgar. Something maybe like mentioned in previous videos about Satan. He's afraid of it. He doesn't like it. He's disgusted by it, and he runs from it. And he prays for help to stay out of it, because he feels it's encroaching on his life. Along comes a moralistic angel and says, if you do what I say, I will protect you from Satan and darkness. And of course, the man is desperate and says, yes, okay, I'll follow you. What should I do? And in his conscience, he's guided to a church. And he joins the church, and his life becomes more prosperous to the point of being privileged. He prays to God, he helps people, he works with others in the community. But the church starts to tell everybody in the community that you can only follow us. Our church is the right one. If you don't follow us, you will go to hell. And immediately Joseph says, wait a minute. Since when does God force you to love him? Isn't the acceptance of love a free will choice on this world? Disgusted by his preacher, he leaves. He sells all of his worldly goods and lives a very simple and humble life, loving his family and praying to his God. In the meanwhile, outside of his home, Satan is discussing with the moralist angel something like this: "Well, I didn't get him, and you didn't get him. I guess we don't get them all." The movie It's a Wonderful Life, to a degree, represents this particular story. The second story is more personal. This is one I experienced directly. It was from this experience the angels, the good ones, asked me to do some of their work for them. Since they knew I knew the difference between moralism and decadence, they asked me to put all aside the things I came in this world to do in order to play good angel, which I have to admit, of all the experiences the angels have, the good angel is the one I like the most. It's the most fun. It's the most interesting. You get to see people grow in little ways, which is closer to how my ancestors think and work. So here goes the story. Like anyone else, I was struggling. But like the story of Joseph, I started to see a lot of dark things within my friends and family I didn't like, I thought were off. And lo and behold, the Satan contract came up. At the same time, I was sent to a small island with a tiny school run by Sister Nana. Not her real name, obviously. Sister Nana and I hit it off immediately. We understood each other very well. And she was a great example on how a violet soul gets it. How a violet soul overcomes its ego in order to do good. She was a perfect example. And we talked a lot about angels and stuff, and she said, I got the calling when I was very young. And she went on to admit her mistakes and misunderstanding of the church. And I'll never forget the conversations we had about such things. One of my favorite conversations was about moralists and how they can misuse things like the Bible or the power of the church to do harm as opposed to good, the Crusades being one of them. Sister Nana went on to say that a lot of politicians sin because it's a sin to use Christ's name or God's name for a political agenda. The reason for this is simple. God is not on anyone's ballot. He is not promoting anyone's political belief. And when you think about that, since when does God need donations to make things happen? Now, Sister Nana lived a very humble life. In her room at the church and school, she had a bed, a desk, and a cross, and that's about it. She did have one hobby, however, gardening. She grew all kinds of flowers. It's one of the most beautiful schools I have ever seen. She grew herbs of all kinds. And I remember fondly making pesto sauce for all of the sisters at the church from all the basil she used to grow. To emphasize how frugally these nuns lived, they considered my pesto sauce a luxury. I was so pleased that they were pleased, I went on to make them cappuccino, herb tea from Sister Nana's garden, and other things they really appreciated. And they went on to teach me about their lifestyle and the way of thinking, and their dedication to the children, which most of these children didn't have very good families, were either fatherless or troubled families, and we would occasionally run into parents who were just completely abusive. But despite the abusiveness of the parents and their demands, Sister Nana always said, I will use love as my countermeasure, as my weapon. And she did. And with her stern, strong, violet ego, which she used very effectively, she convinced most of the parents to chill. A remarkable woman who stood only as tall as my shoulders. She was a great example of what a violet is, with ego and all, who achieves her purpose in life. There is no other Violet I know who achieved their goals, their purpose, so closely as Sister Nana. When she passed, an angel came up and informed me that she made it. She lived her life the path that was chosen for her by the angels, and she went on to meet Christ. Was it perfect? No. She had to come back and undo some mistakes she made. She got to play angel too. But no one is ever perfect in these games. You're not meant to be. This is why many of the Heoka empaths and the indigo souls come back and want to improve themselves, because they instinctively know this is the world that you can do that in. But in any case, when Sister Nana finishes her work in the angel world, she can move on to something else. I also got that message from the angels. This experience taught me two things. One is when people go around saying that they know the Word of God, they are certainly not true Christians. In fact, they are working against Christianity. When you have people who are forcing that kind of thinking on other individuals, they are no different than the politicians. Using God's name to financially move yourself forward is a sin. And according to the angels, they dislike these kinds of people more than the Satanists because they do a disservice. They turn people off to Christianity with their newfound arrogance and ego from simply reading a book. But Sister Nana never did this to me. She said, "Come to my church when you feel like coming." And I did, and occasionally I saw the angels there, which were impressive indeed, especially since her church was tiny. The second was the conflict between my ancestors and the Vatican version of Christianity. This was no accident that I met Sister Nana. This was all planned. And from that experience, I had learned that there are people who understand instinctively that though they believe in Christ, their church may not be perfect. And my ancestors had always told me that Christ did come to Ireland and learned the ways of the Druid, which you can see in the video, The Last Druid, which is listed below. It was the Romans who had used the Bible, rewrote the Bible to suit their needs, because the Romans, when they conquered another country, they always went for the religious artifacts or the religious leaders first, because they felt that once you destroyed another country's religious beliefs, you could impose your rule on them. And this is why there was such a conflict between my psyche and Christianity as a whole. But after seeing the example of Sister Nana, I realized, yeah, some people get it. They know. It's not about the power of the church or the power of the Bible. It's the power of love, the power of the love of God, if you wish. And back in the 60s, the hippie movement sort of reflected that. But of course, we're quickly distorted by the Satanists and the moralists, as mentioned in the previous video. There were many other things Sister Nana and I discussed. Some little secrets, some big secrets. But what impressed me most about this was that Sister Nana, despite being stuck in the world of moralism, could achieve her goal to meet Christ. And the image the angels gave me of her sheer joy of accomplishing her mission is something I will never forget. Occasionally, though rarely, Sister Nana comes and visits me, especially when I made this video. All I can say is I cannot wait to see her in my passing. That concludes this series. While it's not all the secrets of the angels, if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. I will answer whatever I can from the experiences I had while I was on the other side. The next videos will be focusing on the Buddhist beings and the other deities and their secrets. So I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching.